Okay, quick update before we get into the review. When I started this channel, I started making reviews for albums that were coming out quite recently, and I ended up feeling as though I was putting myself under a lot of pressure to get reviews out quick, which was just not possible for me because I have a full-time job, I'm married, I have a life outside of the internet, as unbelievable as that may be. So while this channel started off as a hobby for me to share my opinions on certain albums, because I was full of opinions, and I'll be damned if the world didn't get to hear them. But the pressure I was putting myself under to try and get those videos out was just not good for my mental health, so I decided to call it a day and just not do anything else again. But now I'm back with a brand new philosophy of making videos pretty much whenever the hell I feel like it, on whatever the hell I want, be it an album review or a top 10 list or whatever happens to strike my fancy in the future. But anyway, feel free to subscribe. I do have a link to a Patreon down below because Lord knows everyone else does, so why not? And now that that's out of the way, let's get into the review. So in case you're not aware, my name is Doc Morgan and I do the occasional metal review, and quite recently I was listening to Pantheon of the Nightside Gods by Belzebubs. If you're not familiar, Belzebubs started as a webcomic that describes itself as a true cult documentary in comic strip form and follows the lives of members and family members of this fictional black metal band. Belzebubs the comic reads like it's how non-metalheads see black metal musicians, with permanent core-pained constant references to hell, Satan, H.P. Lovecraft, all things dank, decaying and eldritch. It really feels like it's just, you know, lovingly poking some fun at the genre, and even the music videos quite recently with the release of this album, they keep up the aesthetic and tone with these cartoons that, you know, you can only compare to Death Clock and, you know, even that old household name in virtual bands, Gorillaz. But then we come to this fictional band's debut album, Pantheon of the Nightside Gods, and these guys have dropped all hints of slapstick, all notes of comedy, all traces of humor, etc, etc. If you had never in your life so much as heard of Belzebubs, then you would just see this as another debut album from a black metal band with a funny name. Which actually brings me to my first point. This is not a black metal album. Any black metal tape collecting neckbeardy hipster will tell you that, and I will eat my microphone if this is any of the recorded musicians' debut album. This does not sound like a debut album. This has all the markings of an album recorded by musicians who've been around the block once or twice. A lot of people online are saying that this is actually the band Insomnium, with the lead singer Sloth, that is Belzebub's lead singer Sloth, sounding uncannily like Insomnium's Niilo Sevonen. He is from Finland, and I know I butchered that, but the fact that Sloth sounds like Niilo Sevonen, that is the evidence a lot of people are using to kind of, you know, connect the dots. But, you know, I'm gonna be honest, I think it's just more fun if you just accept Belzebubs for who they are and what they are, and, you know, just don't peek too much behind the curtain. At the end of the day, it's all a performance, it's all theatre. We're just here to be entertained, not, you know, work out the secret identity of these band members. The only person I know for certain is on this album is Lindsay Schoolcraft from Cradle of Filth, who I follow on Twitter along with the rest of the Cradle of Filth band. So when she was doing her recording for Belzebub, she was posting updates to that and even reposting the occasional comic strip on Instagram that showed her recording with the band. This is all in comic strip form, in which she appeared in the comics not as Lindsay Schoolcraft but as Skullcraft, and she also appears in the music video for Churches of Mourning. And that brings me to another point I raised earlier. Speaking of Cradle of Filth, it just reminded me, Belzebubs have always been a black metal band with their corpse paint, winter forests and all that shit. But this is not a black metal album, as I said before. This would fall into the same category that a band like Cradle of Filth would fall into, a band whose sound can be traced back to black metal, as in, it's got the style, the vocal sound, lyrical themes, it's just too clean, too polished, too discernible. Like, this is an album carefully prepared to look black metal, to sell to the public as black metal, but this album is to black metal as Budweiser is to craft beer. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Budweiser, but if I want something that's truly authentic, full of artistry and made with love, I'd pick something obscure from a microbrewery you've never heard of, because that's just what us neckbeardy hipsters do. Guys, if you like that review, feel free to subscribe, like the video, check out my Patreon if you want, or don't. It's a free country, unless you live in a not so free country, in which case disregard that previous message. Hopefully it won't be too long before I get another video out, and yes, it's more than likely going to be on an album that's been out for a while. All in all, I'll see you in the next one.